And it's sure good to see you again. I'm sorry I messed up your last name, but I got a little four-letter name, so those are that longer.
Well, that's a lot easier for me to pronounce your last name. But I do remember in the 82nd session of the legislature coming to testify on some immigration bills, and we had the same discussion.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I see you haven't taken any German since then.
I haven't.
Thank you. It's good to be back. And I want to thank all of you for your service.
And we're going to have to start with your name, too, so we have it for the record.
I realize that. And my name is Sister Elizabeth Riebschlaeger. Riebschlaeger. Right. But don't worry, my mother was a Kletschka, and she had problems with that, too.
And go ahead and tell us who you represent.
I represent the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word from San Antonio, and I'm here to testify for this bill.
Thank you.
You have copies, I think, but I'm going to read it for the record. My testimony today on behalf of the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word is based on 144 years of service to the immigrant Hispanic community. That's among us all, not myself alone. It is also based on my personal experience of immigrant population through my pastoral ministry in Texas parishes over a 15-year period as a coordinator for a Christian ecumenical social services ministry as well as in parish ministry. I witnessed the resulting fear and insecurity permeating the lives of these families because of the growing controversy over their presence among us. I would like to begin by quoting the Texas Catholic Conference, the policy voice for the bishops of the 15 dioceses of Texas. Catholics derive our special concern for the immigrant from the many biblical accounts of immigration. The Catholic Church supports reform of our immigration system that is merciful, charitable, and compassionate to those here simply working for a better life, while also recognizing the legitimate responsibility of the federal government to maintain control of our nation's borders. With regard to HB 3738 specifically, the Texas Catholic Conference states that it supports this bill to encourage victims or witnesses to report crimes without fear of deportation. Experiencing the lives of immigrants and listening to law enforcement testimony at the House Ways and Means Committee during the 82nd session of the legislature, I concluded that crimes against immigrants do go unreported or unprosecuted because immigrants as victims or as witnesses fear contact with law enforcement officers. Investigations into crimes are hampered for law enforcement because immigrants will not cooperate with them out of fear of being identified, arrested, detained, and deported. Some examples of these unreported, unprosecuted crimes are physical or sexual abuse of women and or their children, even when their lives are being threatened by spouses or others, or rape by employers or other employees, robbery, murders, workers who are promised cash or check payments by temporary or permanent employers who fail to pay them as promised. These undocumented persons are afraid to report crimes or cooperate because of this fear that permeates that entire community. As a result, the entire community in which we all live could be endangered as criminals go unidentified and unprosecuted. While we bind them in fear, we are endangering ourselves and our communities. The question I ask each of you to reflect on from the viewpoint of faith and morality behind this bill, what spirit animates my attempt to blend biblical mercy, charity, and compassion with the obligation to maintain control of our nation's borders? Is it the spirit of merciless legal observance or the spirit of mercy and compassion rooted in wisdom? Jesus cautioned the lawmakers of his day, "It is the spirit that gives life. The letter of the law kills." St. Francis de Sales once said, "If I have to fail on the side of justice or charity, I prefer to fail on the side of charity." Some might say, "I prefer to fail on the side of common sense." It seems to me that it is both wisdom and charity to pass this bill and encourage undocumented immigrants to come forward to report crimes and to cooperate with investigators so that all of us may be safer. On behalf of our sisters and of our immigrant families that we serve, I ask you to pass HB 3738 out of committee. Free them from their fear to cooperate with law enforcement and to report crimes that have victimized them or our families. If you recall, those of you who are on this committee, the last legislature, there was a representative, just like the Chief Acevedo was here today, to say that the local law enforcement people do not want to get involved in enforcing federal immigration laws. First of all, they don't have the staff, they don't have the funding, and they don't have the computer capacity to do all the background checks that they need to do. And so I support, and we support, law enforcement across the state in asking that you pass this bill. But I would also strongly encourage that you restore witnesses, because that's very important, it seems to me, to investigations and to prosecutions for the safety of the whole community. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Sister Elizabeth. Any questions? We're always glad to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.